Good afternoon, everyone. Welcome to the Cactus Cafe and the KUT discussion of the hidden world of girls and the women they become, stories of girls and the women they become, with our very special guests, Davia Nelson of the NPR series The Kitchen Sisters. The Kitchen Sisters, along with Nikki Silva, the Kitchen Sisters have won a variety of awards. One is they've won 2 Peabodys, one for Lost and Found Sound, and then another for the Sonic Memorial Project, and also a DuPont Columbia Award for the Hidden Kitchens Project. And they also have a book out on Hidden Kitchens Texas, which they did in collaboration with us here at KUT. So it's wonderful to have you. We also have a girls' studies specialist. PhD student Jesslyn Keller is with us, and she does her work on girl blogs, and she's here in the Department of Radio, Television, and Film doing her PhD. She's also worked at 17 Magazine and Teen Flare Magazine as a journalist and freelance journalist. And before we start off the discussion and play some clips from the Hidden World of Girls project, we have a musical guest also with us. Jendai Bonds is a singer-songwriter and founder of the group here in Austin, Charlie Bell. So she'll start us off with Wish You Could Understand.
Wish you could understand how I feel. You don't know the position I'm in. I'm gonna have to deal with the attitude. You're gonna give me wine with friends. If we could switch our lives, you would come to realize that I'm deep and I need a break. There's something you don't understand. Is that I really, really love you. We get into big fights, yeah man. But isn't that what we're about to do? If we could switch our lives, you'd see that you only make life harder for me. Keep in mind that I have feelings too. Get on your nerves, you get on mine, but to let you know, if we could switch our lives, you would come to realize that I beat and I need a break. If we could switch our lives, you would come to realize that I beat. Thank you.
I forgot to mention that Jendai is 13 years old and started playing when she was 7, so quite accomplished. Thank you so much. And we brought Jendai here because we're very interested in also sharing your stories, the stories of girlhood here in Texas, and some of your stories as well. So later on in this conversation, we'll open it up for questions and discussion, and hopefully some of you will have wonderful stories of girlhood and becoming the women that you've become, or the women in your life. Davia is going to start off by telling us a little bit about the project and how it got started and why it got started. When did this first come up?
Nikki and I were in the middle of a project. A lot of you might even know it was called Hidden Kitchens Texas. It came from the Hidden Kitchens project that we were doing on NPR, secret, unexpected, below-the-radar cooking, how communities come together through food. And we were traveling together back from Texas, and we were reading the paper, and there was an obituary in the paper. The headline was, "Lula Mae Hardaway Dies." And we started reading this obituary to each other. And Lula Mae Hardaway was the daughter of a woman who was 14 years old, single girl who abandoned her daughter, and she was raised by these sharecropping relatives. This was in Alabama. The relatives died when she was young, when she was around 13, and she had few other relatives, and they sent her to Chicago. By the time she was 15, she was married, and to a man much older than herself who forced her into prostitution. She had 2 children with this man, and one of them was born blind. She escaped this marriage, moved to Detroit, and the 2 boys, one in particular, the blind boy, just had this feeling for music, just had music in his soul, and would go outside and would play, and he played drums, and he'd play harmonica. And one day someone from Motown happened by and heard him playing and urged Lula Mae Hardaway to bring her son over to Motown. Turned out to be Stevie Wonder, and Lula Mae Hardaway was Stevie Wonder's mother. And Nikki and I looked at each other and went, whoa, if this is Stevie Wonder's mother's story, who else is out there? What are these other stories? We were already in a hidden mode, looking for stories, the B-side of history, we call it, little-known aspects of history, voices that don't usually make it to the radio, perspectives that you don't hear, people whose stories are overlooked or are not considered mainstream media. And we started saying, okay, if that's Stevie Wonder's mother's story, who else is out there? And around the same time, do people know Eve Ensler's work? Eve Ensler, she has the Vagina Monologues, The Good Body. I went to an Eve Ensler play, and in it she had a line in her program that said her next project was going to be about the secret life of girls. And something about that phrase, coupled with Lula Mae Hardaway's obituary, just something clicked, and suddenly we were in the secret life of girls around the world, which ultimately became the hidden world of girls and the women they become, and that's what launched the quest.
And we're going to play a clip now. I think I'll have you introduce Chicken Pills, because one of the ideas behind this project, or what I really love about this project, are all of the different elements of girlhood that these stories speak to. And one that is not so hidden, but is definitely in every society, is body image. And Chicken Pills is a really unique one, because in Jamaica, you might be able to take it from here and introduce this piece.
Well, in that same way, when we were involved with the Hidden Kitchens Texas project, KUT spearheaded all these stations throughout Texas, opening a phone line, asking listeners to call in with their stories, tell us about their Texas Hidden Kitchens. Well, we did the same thing for the Hidden World of Girls. We asked listeners, neighbors, anyone we talked to, who are the girls we should know about. We were looking for coming of age, rituals and rites of passage, secret identities, groundbreaking girls, trailblazing women. Anyway, I was at the beauty parlor one day and talking to somebody, telling them about what I was doing, and they said, well, do you know about Chicken Pills and girls in Jamaica? And so I said no, and got myself to Jamaica. Yeah, that was a perfect cue. Hawk Mendenhall from KUT is DJing today. I couldn't have scripted a better cue, Hawk. Go back. Here you go.
Some girls, to be more attractive to the male, they get themselves into this use of chicken pills. Carol Turpin, St. Catherine, Jamaica.
Chicken pills are the same pills that you give to the chicken to make them grow faster. Some people use it if you want to get broader hips or bigger bottom. My name is Jason Turpin. I'm a college student from Kingston. In our Jamaican culture, we love a girl that has a lot of shape.
Most males, they love to see women with big bottoms. The whole idea of a Coca-Cola bottle shape.
When they're talking about a Coca bottle shape, it's like more heavier down on the hips.
I don't want a maga woman. That's how the men would speak. You say miga, we say maga. They're figuring that if you look maga, you look poor, and poor in the sense of you're not being taken care of.
I need a fat girl tonight. I need a very, very fat girl.
If you have no meat on your bones, the society can't see your wealth, your progress, your being. My name is Sonia Stanley Nile. I am a lecturer in cultural studies at the University of the West Indies. This African standard of beauty, and it's very much present in Jamaica. The body must be healthy, and that health is expressed in some amount of fat. The healthy body girl must be anywhere between 160 and, say, 210 pounds.
If you have a big bottom, that means that you're sitting on a lot of power. I'm Carolyn Cooper, Professor of Literary and Cultural Studies at the University of the West Indies, Mona, Jamaica. In order to achieve this look, some women are actually taking the hormone pills that are given to chickens to make them fat. The perception is that the benefit of having a nice figure outweighs the medical risk that they're taking.
We have these conversations in the culture about such body modification and conceptions of the ideal body. It manifests in the music, the dance halls, the dance moves. There's a particular song about the woman whose derriere is of such quality, flexibility, and panache that she can successfully, with vim and vigor, ride the motorbike back and be a visual spectacle.
It is a beautiful sight, I'm a love to watch, to see the young girl on the bike back.
In our culture, you get competing norms of beauty. There's a kind of anorexic, Eurocentric model of beauty, also a much more Afrocentric body type that is valorized. What I find amazing is the degree to which women will put themselves at risk to fit an image that they consider to be ideal.
Action. You gotta take chicken pill? You can't do that. Try and stop me. My name is Raquel Jones. I'm 21 years old and I'm from Kingston, Jamaica. I was casted to play a lead role in a short film, Chicken Pill. It's about two teenage girls, one getting more attention from the boys in the class. The other character, Lisa, is having self-esteem problems, so she turns to the chicken pill.
Here's something to look forward to, Lisa. Diarrhea, rashes. Oh, I'm sure Ronnie will like rashes on those new breasts. And cancer, Lisa, cancer.
I am Dr. Neil Persad Singh, a dermatologist in Kingston, Jamaica. Chicken pills, the harmful ingredient is arsenic. Over the years, I've seen quite a few people who have taken the pill, mostly women. I think they're a little bit secretive about it, and they don't want their friends, etc. to know. The government, they've banned the importation of chicken pill. However, the pill is freely available all over the island.
This preoccupation with transforming the body is something that transcends cultures. Whether it's under the surgeon's knife or you freelance with a chicken pill, it's a whole discourse of dissatisfaction about.
I think a few things just come to my mind listening to that piece here. I was at Ann Richards' school today, your school, and they were so hoping you would. Jendai has been sick this week, and so when you showed up today to sing, I was so impressed because your whole school was like, she's been sick all week. We hope she can go. Anyway, I played this song there this morning at school for the 10th grade classes, and one of the girls just listened to it, and she said, this piece is such a relief, which really caught me by surprise. She said, just the pressure to not have to be skinny, the pressure to not be thin, that your body could be some other way. And I was caught by surprise by that.
I think that speaks to something as well that Jesslyn and I were talking about, which is what do these narratives, or how are these narratives affecting a dialogue that is very specific part of girlhood. Like girls are seen as the can-do girl, and they're kind of everywhere in society. And what are these different narratives? Why are they so important in our lives? Why is it important for us to share them and to know them?
Hi, everyone. Well, we often get a lot of kind of limited, one-dimensional portrayals of girls in the media. So we get, in American media, we get, the mean girl. We get the clothes-obsessed, boy-crazy, anorexic girl. Or we get a girl that has lost all of her confidence by the media due to, the sexualization of girls. And so we get this portrayal of, girl as an innocent victim of, dangerous media culture. So I think stories like this kind of complicate some of those narratives a little bit and show that girls are a really diverse group and that there's a lot more different kinds of girlhoods than what we actually see in American media.
Another thing that we were going to discuss was the title. The hidden world of girls. This suggests kind of a mythology around girlhood. And it also speaks to different tropes of girlhood, which are the girls writing the diaries and keeping secrets. And in one of your pieces, there's even a secret double life. Maybe you could talk a little bit about the day the earth stood still.
With all our projects, we, as I mentioned earlier, we open up phone lines and we say to the nation, here's what we were looking for. We did a series called Lost and Found Sound at the turn of the century, asked the nation to tell us about vanishing voices, sound on the verge of extinction, oral traditions. Sonic Memorial, we did that after 9/11, asked people to send in sound and story about 9/11 and the lower Manhattan neighborhood, Hidden Kitchens, and now with Hidden World of Girls, the same thing. We opened up these phone lines and we asked people to send us emails about their traditions, rituals, their secret lives. So much of the lives of girls is, on the one hand, girls are everywhere and being so prominent, and on the other hand, the kind of deeper truths of girls' lives are much harder to speak about. I mean, I listened to that Jamaican piece, and I think about just how Jamaican women are talking about their bottoms and the derrieres and panache, and I just think how little of that language is here in America to just speak about the body. Or this piece I'll play a little bit later where they talk about the girl being on her moon, having her period, and those things are just not in everyday conversation here. Anyway, we opened up this phone line. All kinds of people called in, including a woman named Pat Cadigan, to tell us about a secret ritual. And so, Hawk, if you will jam forward with me 12, it'll be about 16 slides, keep going, to the day the earth stood still. Yeah, we're going to get to hear all this today, I'm sure.
My name's Helen Cott.
Keep going, yeah. So these are some of the calls from the Hidden World of Girls phone line, including Pat Cadigan's call, which closes this piece, which is about her secret world with her friend and her superpowers.
You have 87 new messages. To listen to your messages, push 3.
I ran away from home at age 15 and put myself through art school, go-go dancing.
My daughter got training as a car mechanic, opened a garage in Burlington, Vermont called Girlington.
I want to tell you about my struggle with bulimia.
Hello, I'm 12 years old. I'm on the New Moon Girls editorial board.
My mother was a war bride. In the Second World War, the English girls that married American soldiers.
Whenever one of us turns 13, my mother has this big makeup coming-of-age ritual where she'll do your colors. She finds out if you're a fall or a summer. She teaches you how you put on eyeliner.
I'm calling about my grandmother. She is 87 years old. She's been a pediatrician for over 50 years. Started an all-female practice in the South in the 1950s. She is one of my heroes and works in an inner-city clinic to this day.
Message 7 was received at 2:10 a.m. Saturday.
My name is Pat Cadigan. My best friend Rosemary and I had a very involved secret life when we were in elementary school. After we saw The Day the Earth Stood Still on TV, We invented a whole secret life in which we were twins from the planet Venus. And we were in charge of the entire solar system, as well as Earth. And this mostly involved our having secret, exclusive contact with the Beatles.
Hello, this is John speaking with his voice. We're all very happy.
Who came to us for advice about their songs and how to deal with fame and other important matters. On occasion, they would ask us to use our highly developed shape-shifting ability to become them and finish recording sessions and concert tours when they were too tired to go on themselves. Every detail of our exciting lives was being broadcast to our home planet Venus as well, providing many hours of entertainment for all the other Venusians. Of course, we had many other superpowers which allowed us to help out Superman, Flash, Wonder Woman, and a few other superheroes. Now, this complex double life lasted from 1963 to a time when we should have outgrown it, except we were having too much fun. Eventually, our lives diverged. Rose stayed in the town where we grew up, married and had 2 daughters. I went off to university and eventually became a science fiction writer. We reunited in the early 80s when we were both having marital problems and tried to keep in touch, although contact became sporadic again. We'd been out of touch for a few years when I found out that Rose had died of bone cancer about 2 weeks before 9/11, only a few days before she would have turned 50. She's on Venus now, I'm sure of it.
Such a great piece. We talked a little bit about the title, but what did you learn about what a girl is from doing this series? Like, what are the cutoff points of here's a girl, then she becomes a woman? And Jesslyn, the funniest thing about your bio that you sent me was Jesslyn sent me this fantastic bio last night. At the bottom, it said, and she still considers herself a girl. And I think it's a really interesting thing. How do we see girls here in the States and versus how girls are seen or defined elsewhere? And what did you learn from your vast interviews? And also you can comment as well,
Okay. I'll start off. It's really interesting because historically, the idea of who a girl is has really kind of changed. It's a very historically and culturally specific term. If you look back into the 1800s, a girl, it was very based in biology. So, when a girl got her first period, she all of a sudden became a woman. And so it was a very kind of biology-based construction. And there's been other kind of markers for transitioning into womanhood, marriage, other kind of things like that. And then, there we go. Is that better?
I think so. Well, that helps.
Can you hear me? Okay. And I also wanted to mention that then for a while, the term girl had a very kind of negative connotation in the women's liberation movement in the 1960s. It was kind of seen as infantilizing, and there was a push to call teen girls young women. And the reason that this was done was it made a lot of sense. It was because the term girl had been used often in kind of a derogatory way towards women in the workplace and such. But then that kind of changed, and I think third wave feminism, which is kind of a contemporary form of feminism that started in the 1990s, really kind of became to reclaim the word girl. So there was the riot girl subculture, for example, that really kind of focused on being girls in the current time and not necessarily understanding girl as a precursor to becoming a woman. So then there was girl power. There's been a lot of kind of examples of the way girl has been reclaimed recently. So I wouldn't say that it's really a term that is based in biology at all anymore. It's really kind of, I would say, dependent on the woman or girl at hand as to how they want to be identified, I guess.
I don't have a good answer to that question. As you asked it, in thinking about girls around the world, I kept being aware of how many girls are married so young in their cultures. What is girlhood in the United States is such a different thing than girlhood in Afghanistan, or a Yemeni girlhood, or a girlhood in Africa. And in part, it's because the economics drives that so much. What does a family have to sell? Well, part of what it has to sell in order to survive is its girl. Can they feed her? She's married off to someone much older. That's one less mouth to feed. The boys are there working. Suddenly a 9-year-old girl, a 10-year-old girl, a 12-year-old girl is married to a 40-year-old man. He dies. She can't remarry. That's her life. It's basically over. Girlhood. Some level, through doing this series, I've come to think about how much female genital mutilation there is in the world still. How many girls face that. Cultures where women who wish it hadn't been done to them but still do it to their daughters because they are afraid their daughters will be shunned by their tribe, by their people if they don't, even though it was such a horrific and frightening part of their life and had huge consequences. Girlhood in so many places is defined by hair. I noticed in so many places they allow a girl basically till puberty to let her hair grow. It's uncut. And then the minute that she's sort of crossed over, they start covering her hair. Hair is a lightning rod. Hair is trouble. You know, it's a dangerous, long hair. You better watch out, is one of the things of girls. I thought maybe I'd play a little bit from this piece, a story about Fatimata Latuma. It's Tartit. This is a story from Mali. Tartit is a women's group. They're Tuareg women, for the most part, a couple of men playing some wicked electric guitar with them. Yeah, we're going up to number 6. Just when you think you understand the rituals and rites of a girl's culture, you've come across something that flips it on its head. So maybe we'll go back to that. I want to thank you all, too, for coming out here on a Friday afternoon. I see so many friends. Joe Nick, you're there, and Jimmy Dale, and Toots is here. And it's a pleasure to see so many friends here. Okay, here we go. We are traveling to the dunes of the Sahara with this one.
I am Fadimata Waletuma. I come from Mali, Tuareg of Mali. I am the leader of Tartit Women's Group.
Tartit are 5 beautiful women who perform together traditional music from the region of Timbuktu.
Et la vie d'un Touareg, c'est la vie nomade dans un campement.
The life of a Tuareg is the life of nomads living in the desert in a camp in tents.
Nous vivons sous des tentes, nous ne sommes pas dans des maisons et à chaque fois.
Every time we move, we have to pack everything, put it on camels.
On rase la fille jusqu'à 10 ans, elle ne doit pas avoir les cheveux.
Until a girl is 10 years old, they cut their hair. They stop cutting the hair when she's 10 so that when she becomes a woman around 12, she has already beautiful hair.
Divorcer, c'est comme prendre un verre d'eau et boire et puis c'est fini.
Within the Tuaregs, if someone doesn't love you anymore, you have to leave him. They say that, well, the more time you divorce, the more beautiful you are and successful.
Chez nous, les Tuaregs, les femmes fêtent les divorces.
The women throw a party when they divorce.
Une grande fête plus importante que celle du mariage.
The divorce party is a bigger party than the wedding.
I hope you can see Tartit when they come to play at KUT in
next month.
Yeah.
Okay. I don't know. But speaking of what will air on KUT, we'll be airing these 2 it's a two-part series, right, on the Hidden World of Girls, and it's hosted by Tina Fey, and they will be on KUT Friday, October 21st, and October 28th, a Friday as well. So we won't hear Fresh Air those days, and that's when you can hear them on KUT, if you're interested. Jendai, I was going to ask you the same question about your definition of girl versus woman. If you want to speak to that at all.
I don't think there's a difference between them. I just think that they're two different words used for the same meaning. Because you can still be an older girl and still have the same qualities as a younger girl. And I think that just together, it's the same thing.
We're going to open it up for questions in just a little bit, and Jendai is going to perform another song for us. This one, I've Fallen Down. You want to talk a little bit about it at all?
I wrote this song last year. Last year was kind of a rough year for me. It was kind of a transition year. And it was, I just wrote it as I felt at the moment I was writing it. So it's a lot of emotion, and it summarizes how I feel. I've fallen down and I can't get back up, and they don't seem to notice, and if they do, then they don't care. I've fallen down, down a hill or down a canyon, down a waterfall, I just can't get back up. Maybe could I talk to you? We can work this problem through. I'm waiting on the other side of the fence. What you got to want to get to. And when I get to my room and shut my door, I take a deep breath and look around me. I dig my face into my pillow, teardrops turning into a sea. I've fallen down and I can't get back up, and they don't seem to notice, and if they do, then they don't care. I've fallen down, down a hill or down a canyon, down a waterfall, I just can't get back up. Every morning is a drag, and the afternoon's dramatic. By the time I get to dinner, I am extremely exhausted. And when I get to my room and shut my door, I take a deep breath and look around me. I dig my face into my pillow, teardrops turning into a sea. You're just a slacker, or just too girly, or just to show off, or just too nerdy, or just too bossy, or just do anything that hurts. You won't get famous. You talk too loud and sing too low. A lazy thinker, eat some sandwiches, you're skinny. fallen down, and I can't get back up. And they don't seem to notice, and if they do, then they don't care. I've fallen down, down a hill or down a canyon, down a waterfall. I just can't get back up. Down, 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 I've fallen down, I've fallen down. Down, 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 I've fallen down. Thank you.
Where did that song come from? Tell us about the writing of that song.
I was just it was a time where I had to take more responsibility for everything. I guess I had to start taking more control over the band. I didn't want to leave everything to my parents. I had to be more on top of things relating to my school life with organization, and there was so much that I knew I had to do, and there are some people around me who tried to make me feel like I wouldn't be able to succeed on the path that I wanted to go down, which is music, of course. And it was pretty hard, and a lot of the songs that I write are usually how I feel. And so that song was just written just one day. It took like 10 minutes, and I wrote it. That I worked out the kinks. So now I play it with my band.
I should mention, too, you can find more of Jedi's work at charliebellmusic.com. Is that your website? And there's just an article in USA Today about or featuring your band, right? It's very, very cool.
Thank you.
So we'd like to open it up for questions. Miss Kayla Gabriel from KUT will be coming around with a microphone. If anyone has a question for anyone on the panel, and later on we'll be listening to more of Davia's work as well. So, right over here, Kayla.
Something Jedi just said. Something she said just a moment ago made me think of a Sandra Cisneros quote. You know, she talks about aging and whether you're 15 or 35, you're defined by that age and the culture in which you reside, but you're not just 15, you're also 14 and 13 and 11 and all the ages that led up to that age. And she talks about a layering of influences and growth. I'm just going to throw that out there to see if you have a comment about how age defines a persona for a young woman or an older woman or anybody, and how that might play into that, because it's a concept, and I thought about it when you were talking about how, you know, age and those labels are just labels, but anything you can say about the Cisneros idea of the layering of ages?
Okay, that's interesting. I've never heard of that before. I've never heard that quote before. I think it's hard for women and girls because we are always taught to pay attention to our age. I'm just thinking of, you know, cultural tropes such as the biological clock. You know, you're getting too old, time is running out, you better have that baby quickly. And especially now when, you know, girls and young women and older women are all expected to, you know, in our culture, achieve kind of a, you know, a career, a family, all that sort of stuff. And And so I think it's somewhat liberating to kind of step back from that concept of age. And that's what I like about the term girl, is that it kind of allows us to almost reject that kind of cultural trajectory that it's so easy to find yourself on. So I like the layering idea in a way. Does that answer your question? Okay.
I was wondering too, one of the pieces that I came across on the site, The Hidden World of Girls, was about the little babushkas. And these are these singing women in Russia who have kind of gone through their life cycle, but they were losing their husbands so early because of alcoholism and health issues. And so these women kind of joined forces, and they were having maybe what you could call a second girlhood and singing together. Was that a piece that you did for the Hidden World of Girls project, or was that an NPR piece? Because I wasn't sure.
Yeah, the Hidden World of Girls is a collaboration with Kitchen Sisters and NPR and independent producers all around the world. And David Green, the correspondent who's in Russia and who's been hosting Morning Edition of late, we asked all the foreign correspondents to pitch stories, and he was the one who said, I want to do the singing babushkas. And they are these women. Does everyone have an image in their mind of these babushkas, these older kind of squat women? You find them sitting on the sides of the road selling wild berries and foraged mushrooms and, you know, kind of scarf and print faded dresses. Anyway, these babushkas started to get together and have hootenannies, basically, and they started singing Beatles songs, and it launched them into their international career at some of those Eurovision music festivals, and they've been getting top prizes and sort of, I mean, they still go home and they're still by the side of the road selling cherries in August, but they also sing Beatles songs and have that kind of the fellowship of music. It gives them a more girlish, timeless quality. But I think the Beatles do that for us all.
Yeah. Any other questions? Maybe we could talk a little bit about these. Now we're going from girl to womanhood to all of these different stages of life. A lot of the themes that are popping out from the pieces that you produced are on rites of passage. Is there one specifically that you wanted to play?
Sure. That phone line, let's see if we're going to go to the Braveheart piece. That's the second one up there. We opened that phone line on NPR and asked listeners to call, and one of the calls that struck us the most came from South Dakota, from the Sioux Reservation. We went, and they asked us to come look. The piece is called The Braveheart Women's Society Coming of Age in South Dakota. Maybe we'll just listen for a few moments.
Hi, my name is Brooke Spotted Eagle. I belong to a women's society on my reservation in South Dakota, the Braveheart Women's Society. My mother is one of the founding grandmothers who brought it back to life. I saw the Hidden World of Girls and think this would be an amazing opportunity to share with other Native women a Ishnati coming of age ceremony for our girls. Thanks. Bye.
Childhood was really rough, lost and floating and drifting and just trying to survive. Didn't feel like I had a place on earth. My name is Marissa Joseph. I'm 21. I live in Ihangtuan territory in South Dakota. I was adopted as a newborn. A large part of my life I was kind of just bouncing between family members. I was a pretty strong alcoholic in my early teens and just on a really bad path. I didn't know who I was and what I was looking for and what I needed, and had really wanted to not live anymore. In the summer of my 14th year, I went to Ishnati and I felt like I was found.
In the Braveheart Society a long time ago, the women would retrieve the dead from the battlefield and do what they could to help the family. In a way, we're doing the same thing, bringing back our people from emotional death. My name is Faith Spotted Eagle. We're in Lake Andes on the Ihangtuan homeland near the Missouri River. It was in 1994. We went around 3 or 4 states and we interviewed grandmas. We asked them what they remembered of Ishnati coming of age. In the old days, as soon as a girl got her first moon, her first menses, the family would take them immediately and you would isolate yourself from the rest of the camp and they would begin teaching you. So we symbolically set up one camp a year and we have the girls come in for 4 days.
One over to the north. Bring it back. One over to the north. There.
Yeah. From the very beginning, you need to put up your own teepee, your own lodge. You need to have that strength to house yourself.
Where's your door at?
On the girls' teepees, you have to have 13 poles.
We use 13 poles because we have 13 moons in a year. See, they're close. That's why we call it a moon camp, because it's a special time for women Quickly. to learn about themselves. The rain's coming.
These 4 days, it's their sacred time.
The girls can't feed themselves, they can't touch food, they can't drink water themselves.
The mother or the auntie or whoever they bring with them has to do it for them.
I was like, oh my God, I don't want to do this. Your mom has to feed you and give you water, and I just didn't like my mom.
These 4 days, it's treating them like a baby one last time before they become young women.
The feeding, it became kind of a little heartbreak, that bittersweet feeling, because no longer will she be my little girl to feed anymore. You really began to start the foundation of what that adult relationship is with a mother and a daughter.
I'm Teresa Hart. I didn't have this.
How many people here had any kind of coming-of-age ritual, men or women, anything that, any ritualized passage? What was it? Who else had?
Mexican culture is the quinceañera, the 15-year-old party.
And what's the quinceañera mean? I mean, what are they saying to a girl in that moment?
Well, it's different at different levels of society. I think it's very different with the, in every level of Mexican society is all I can speak to. It would depend. For my family, it was a very social event, but it meant you were a woman. And definitely that was a change once you'd been, I think it's like the bar mitzvah that you can say, you've passed over to the other side. But in other areas of society, it's much more religious. In my family, it wasn't that, there wasn't a mass. There was just a big party. So I think
is there something symbolic? Is there something, the changing of shoes, of what you wear? What are the physical?
Well, you wear white, of course. And so, no, I can't think of anything. But it was all your life. You would know that when you were 15, this big party was going to come. And my uncle died a month before I was 15, so I couldn't have the celebration when I was 15. We had to be in mourning for a year, so I didn't have my party until a year later. So I think it's definitely still goes on all these years later that it still happens. My daughter had a quinceañera, and I think it still happens. Definitely, it's a big event.
Who else? Fellas, any? Introduce yourself too.
I'm Mary Gordon Spence, and I think one of the biggest rites of passage in my life is going to happen on February 21st. Being 65 and getting Social Security is, honest to gosh, I was listening and thinking, and I remember when I got my first bra, and I remember one day I was a virgin, and the next day I wasn't. It wasn't the same time that I got my first bra, but when I think about rituals and namings, I grew up in the generation where you stopped being a girl because that was too childish. And even now I say young women, but I'm fixing to change that after today, thanks to you. But I can't think of a more prominent naming than turning 65, and it seems impossible, and I know you're going to say you were shocked to know that I'm that age, to feel so young and be so youthful, and yet starting in February, I will make $800 more a month because I don't have to pay health insurance. So that is an incredible ritual for girls that we don't think of happening, but I'm still that girl, and I'm fixing to get Medicare, and it's just great.
It's interesting to me to think of rituals that are kind of, they're usually religious or they're a consumer-oriented ritual as well, like the Sweet 16 parties and the crazy hype that's gone on around Sweet 16 parties in the past few years because of the reality shows. This is something in media studies that we talk about a lot, or that you guys have talked about a lot. Maybe you could speak to what those say to girls.
Yeah, it's interesting when you were talking about the quinceañera. When I was working in New York, I actually worked on the launch of a website called MissQuinceMag.com. And it was a website devoted completely to quinceañeras and like preparing a girl for the party, which of course meant buying the right dress, buying the right makeup, you know, getting the right hair tips, talk about the right date, that sort of stuff. So I think, I mean, girls have always been marketed to as a consumer group, but I think there's definitely been an increase, you know, in the past 15 years with reality television and My Super Sweet 16, I think it was called, into kind of commercializing these rituals and making money off of them. And even, you know, if you look at things like prom, for example, you know, the prom magazines, and, you know, people spend hundreds and hundreds of dollars to have the perfect prom. And so what does that mean? Does that take away from these events? I wouldn't say that, but I think it definitely kind of puts these sort of rituals within kind of a commercial frame within popular culture. And I think, you know, that might change the way they're understood.
Quinceañeras are great. Actually, we did a story with some kids from Austin High not too long ago on the men who teach dances at quinceañeras. And there's a very specific group of men who teach the quinceañera dances. Can you speak to that at all, the quinceañeras?
Oh my gosh, that brings back memories. Fortunately, that I didn't do mine when I was 15, because the man that used to teach it, and he had some name, some Aztec name, it was a name like Cuauhtemoc or something, and he was this little short guy, and he put you through the paces. But since I was the next year, I don't know what had happened to him, but we had this woman. But it was equally, you had to go for months in practice. It was like preparing for your bat mitzvah, except totally social, learning a dance. This dumb dance that the girls had to do by themselves to show how, you know, feminine you were. And then you had to dance with your father, and then you had to dance with your, no, you're not date, he had another name, but I mean, the boy that was accompanying you. So it was a big deal, yes, to learn this dance and go for months and months and practice this thing. And yeah, but as I said, mine was a part of a big social club, and it was a real big social event. So, but definitely there was a lot of pressure from your family and the other, that you would do well in front of all these people that would be watching you, and especially the old people that would be seeing if you were towing the line on the expectations that they had about your behavior. So in a way, it is like the pressure, I think, in a debutante situation. Yeah, so it's, but oh my gosh, the dance teacher, that brings back memories.
You're learning how to be feminine from a male dance teacher. It's very interesting.
Did any of the men in the room or boys in the room have any kind of ritual? Anything? Fraternities? Yeah, Jim?
I don't know if it was a tradition. I don't know if my brother received the same thing as I did, but when I was about 14, my father took me out in the car and we drove around, and he told me about becoming sexually active and girls and what they expected and how to be nice to girls. And it was all quite embarrassing. But that's really the only thing that I went through that was sort of like a coming of age.
What did he tell you girls expect?
I'm not sure I remember, because I don't know that I listened to him that closely.
This is Jim Wallace, who is an old friend of the Kitchen Sisters. I've got to just use this minute to veer off back to Hidden Kitchens, my default position in life. We're speaking of rituals. I'm going to go into a hidden kitchen ritual for 1 second. We were in the midst of the Hidden Kitchens, Texas. Is that all right if I veer here? Sorry. I dug this up as we were preparing to come. We were in the middle of Hidden Kitchens, Texas, gathering Texas tradition stories, and in came a letter to the Kitchen Sisters' office. Dear sisters, turned out to be from Jim. Dear sisters, you are cordially invited to, would you like to read this?
Dear sisters, you are cordially invited to the 10th annual kidney party. It is held every year on December the 8th, Saturday this year, to celebrate the anniversary of my kidney transplant. A brief history. The kidney party began on the first anniversary as a gathering and party to thank all of the people that were so considerate and helpful during my transplant and recovery. Carol, of German ancestry, was raised in a small German community in Wisconsin and had grown up eating organ meats, which she learned to prepare from her mother and grandmother. When we were married, she introduced me to beef tongue, beef heart, steak tartare, and sauce, which is meat jelly. So naturally, we thought it was appropriate to serve organ meats at that first celebration. We served steak and kidney pie and beef tongue, and because the kidney I received has 2 ureters, the connection between the kidney and the bladder, we decided to serve split pea soup. We also served chili with kidney beans, dirty rice, and kidney beans, 3-bean salad, and marinated vegetables with hearts of palm and artichoke hearts. As people were leaving, several said how much they had enjoyed the tongue, and a few mentioned how much they missed heart and other variety meats. The next year, the second party of what would become an annual event, we added grilled beef heart. The third year, we introduced liver pate and sautéed chicken livers. Later, we added steak, tartare, sauce, and pig skins as well. The kidney party has become an annual event where we can gather with friends and give thanks for another year of life. We hope you can join us in our celebration. If not this year, then another. The party is always on December the 8th. Respectfully, Jim and Carol.
I'm going to just hog here for one more second because we have one other star of Hidden Kitchens, Texas, with us. Toots, do you feel like telling your story? Can we swing a microphone that away? And can you, do you mind introducing yourself and talking about your Hidden Kitchen tradition?
I can't hear.
She's very shy.
All right. Jimmy, do you feel like telling her story? Shall I?
How about having my sister tell her story?
Perfect.
This is my sister, Donna.
Perfect.
Well, goodness. Hi. I'd like everybody to know that my beautiful mother was 85 yesterday. And a huge tradition that we have in our family was we had a wonderful family dinner last night. She was the star. And my daughter, both my daughters were there, but one of my daughters is about to have triplets. So this lovely lady is about to be the great-grandmother to 3 little boys. So I don't know what to say about her. You said her kitchen traditions.
In the Hidden Kitchens Texas book, she talked about nail soup.
I grew up with them, and we were people who didn't have a lot of money, but we always had good food. And this woman can go into the kitchen Like, I mean, I might need to go to H-E-B and buy this, that, and the other and come home and try to figure out what I'm going to cook. She can go into the kitchen at any time and find something, and not only will it be a meal, it will be a wonderful meal. And I think she learned that probably from her mother. And again, I don't really know why I'm standing over here talking, but it's nice to see you all, and thank you for letting me be here.
Thank you, Donna. Thank you, and happy birthday.
Speaking of triplets, there's an amazing story about a boy who had to go around with his mother and translate as she was teaching women in Nigeria about contraception. Is this one that you did too?
We did that story. I don't have it with me here, but the writer is Chris Abani. I don't know if anybody knows his writing. He's Nigerian, lives in America now, beautiful poet and writer. And his mother was white from London, his father black from Nigeria. They met at Oxford. She was a secretary there. He was a foreign student, and they fell in love. And they didn't really fit in England in the late 50s, and he took her back to Nigeria, and she proceeded to teach birth control, the Billings ovulation method in villages throughout Nigeria. But the way, and she didn't speak Igbo, the language, and the way that she would teach it, she taught Chris, who was 8 years old then, all the issues, all the method of the Billings ovulation method, and this 8-year-old boy had to go into villages with this white mother, and she would say, now to find it, they have to know where they are in their menstrual cycle, and so you have to ask, and this humiliated this 8-year-old, and he couldn't figure out, and plus it was so transgressing in African culture for a boy or a man to speak to women about these issues, and he would develop this whole language trying to figure out where they were in their flow, saying, is it a brook? Is it a river? Is it a waterfall? And so we tell that story. It's called The Hidden World of Daphne May Hunt, if you ever... Actually, it's in the Tina Fey Hidden World of Girls specials. So you can hear it in October on KUT, and it's also online at hiddenworldofgirls.org.
And my favorite quote from that is when he's talking about sitting out on the porch and learning how to knit from his mother, that she didn't really consider it masculine or feminine, she just did it. And then she told him, you know, every good man has to have a little bit of girl in him anyway. That was the greatest quote. I thought it was really cute. Any other questions? Yeah.
Well, as a 67-year-old male, I'm a little confused about girls and women, because you all have been several things in my 67 years, mostly trying to find out who you are and where you fit. And it has been very confusing for me, because I married this lovely lady, she married me, and I found out when we got our license that I was not going to change my name and she wasn't going to change her name. And that was 36 years ago, which is not done. As the woman in Little Rock said at the courthouse, you can't do that. So it's an interesting problem for men to try and figure out, because Barry will go on a trip with someone. I said, are you going with a girl? Are you going with a woman? What are you doing? And I want to be respectful, but I don't know how to be. I don't know whether I'm going to insult you by saying girl and insult you by saying woman. I just don't know what to do. Here we can go to world. World?
But it's also very, go ahead. You might be able to speak to this a little bit better than me because, okay, and I'm not a pro here, but I know Simone de Beauvoir talked a lot about this in The Second Sex, where this idea of, I guess in French it's a lot different, the way that you refer to a girl or you refer to a woman. I think that, you know, as a respect thing, I guess it's about age. You know, if someone is older than you, then it's a woman, and if someone is younger, it's usually considered a girl. But it's for me, I have no problems asking women if they consider themselves a girl or not, because I know the terms are so nebulous, and because they've kind of been repurposed across the board throughout the decades. I think that the debate is a very interesting one to have, as opposed to take.
There's anything right or wrong about it. It's just, how do we communicate respectfully with each other?
Oh, I think it's a good question.
And honor what he presented, because I saw a few looks around here, and he, in my opinion, I don't know you, but this is a real dilemma, and if anybody poo-poos that, you're not honoring his dilemma. It's real. So for those of you who want to poo-poo that, and what, because I felt a few vibes. So first, I think we honor the question and honor the position he's coming from before we try to answer it. And you did, but I just want to speak up for that, because there are a lot of people who wouldn't raise that.
No, I think
so
it's wonderful.
Now I answer the question.
No, I don't have a question. I think it's a wonderful thing to ask. You know, I mean, to ask women whether they consider themselves a woman or a girl, and the difference between how they felt when they were a girl or a woman. You know, I know that for myself, having my daughter was a definite marker of, you know what, I'm no longer a girl, and I have a baby girl, and I have to definitely take responsibility for her now. And I didn't, after that, consider myself a girl. As when I was in a lot of girls' studies classes with Mary Kearney, one of Jesslyn's professors, I was completely up for considering myself a girl, you know, in that context. But for me, that was the main marker. That was my kind of.
Yeah, I think that's really interesting, because I don't have children and very much consider myself a girl. And it's interesting you say that, because I was just reading something, and in Spanish there's many different words. Apparently, I don't speak Spanish, but for girl. And the author was talking about how liberating it was, and when she interviewed American and Canadian girls, how kind of constricted they were by the language they had available for them. And even if we think about men, I was talking to another one of my friends about this yesterday, and she's like, they have the term guy, but we don't have anything really equivalent. So I thought that was interesting, which guy seems kind of a lot less, you know, there are things like, I heard someone say chick, but that has weird kind of almost sexist connotations, I guess, to some people. So I think it's a very good question. I don't have an answer except maybe to, ask the woman or girl in question.
I think it's something larger that you're speaking to, though, is girls being able now to define themselves, you know, and now we're in a situation where we're gaining agency, and girls are in that discussion. And so maybe that's why you feel like, where have you've been such different things throughout my life? I don't even know who you are anymore, you know. And I think it's because girls and women have also been such different things throughout their lives, and the idea that now, you know, their presence is more recognized is really important, and that they have a say in who they are creates discussion, creates controversy, and things aren't as set. And perhaps for men, they are more set. Do you feel like there was a definite transitional period between you as a boy and a man?
Yeah, we were either boys or we were men, and by God, you better be a man earlier rather than later, because you started out being to take care of your mother, your sister, your grandmother, and you were the defender of the family. So by definition, you were a man with darn quick. And if you had death in the family or something like that, you were a man instantly. And you know, well, I may be getting myself out of the reel. My wife is giving me instructions. If a man is out in the woods and a woman's not there, he says something that she's still wrong. The question is, you know, while women have been maturing, and particularly during my lifetime, because of my age, and they've been, you know, moving into what was traditionally a man's role, and now some men are moving into what's traditionally a woman's role. It's a very tumultuous kind of time. And as a, do I need this? You may want to turn it off. As a man, I'm not sure when I transitioned from boyhood, but I remember it pretty early. I don't ever really remember being a boy. It was kind of like a baby and then a man.
Yeah.
But anyway, it's just an interesting point, and you've given me some courage to go forward and ask women, okay, you are a female. What do you want me to refer to you as? And I may get whacked a bit, but that's all right. So thank you very much. Simple question.
Yeah. It's different too. I mean, my grandma, she left school at 12 and was working at, 13, and that was girl to woman. And there was no kind of teenage life there, and this is all pre-World War II and in England, and she was really, really poor. So there's definitely, when you have to take on a role, then that's who you kind of become. Question?
We've been talking a lot about ritual. Did you get stories about when those rituals break down? Like, sort of referenced it in the reservation group, where there wasn't the rituals and they're reinstating that, the power in that. Oh. Right. Oh, wow, that's loud. So we've been talking about ritual, and I was wondering if you got any stories about when rituals don't happen, or especially if they don't happen to an individual that is from a culture. Because a close friend of mine, her mother is Mexican and her father was American, I think of German descent, and she was mostly raised by her father without any of the Mexican traditions. So she didn't have a quinceañera. And so when she was turning 30, she felt that she had never really been told that by the group that, yes, you are a woman. And so she threw her own party. And she called it a double quinceañera. It's like, look, I am twice 15 now. I'm a woman already. Get over it. So I wondered if you got any other stories about people who have experienced that breakdown of ritual.
That was a huge theme throughout the series. A lot of people spoke to that. And the one that actually sticks with me the most is from Chris Abani, same fellow I was talking about earlier, who talked about in Nigeria growing up, there used to be these real coming-of-age rituals for girls, coming-of-age rituals for boys. Boy, I hope I can remember right. The girls were presented basically in these sort of brush skirts, topless, almost in like boxing rings in the middle of the town, in the middle of the village, when they came of age in a certain way, and all the men would come to this boxing ring and look at the girls and decide whether they were healthy, fertile, attractive, worthy. And that was the coming of age ritual when he was growing up. And he said that there was a large men's ritual, and a lot of it was that older circumcision ritual. And he said that but it was not only that, it was this whole way of becoming a man, the equivalent of going in the car with your dad and finding out things, only it was in the bush, and it was for a long time. And one thing that he said was these rituals were breaking down. And he said, especially as a lot of Nigerians leave and they're elsewhere and they're out of the country, they kind of fly back home at that point. Usually it's a few years after the ritual would have been, and there is this symbolic sort of jet set version of the ritual that sort of happens in hotels instead of out in the bush. And it's this sort of vestigial version of the ritual, but they honor it to that point without the rituals where you really learn how to survive, where you learn the skills in the brush, where you learn the ways that, the old stories from the older men to the younger men, all those things that coming of age were about, that taught you those things, the wisdom of an older woman to a younger woman. So a lot of people that we spoke with in the course of the series said that that's why they felt the world was so at war right now, in part that we'd abandoned all those rituals, and so people were lost on some fundamental level, didn't know how to behave, didn't know their role, didn't know how to honor the elders, didn't know how to provide for one another. Yeah, I think if Nikki and I could do anything out of this series, it would be sort of urge people to bring back coming-of-age rituals, whatever your culture is, to find a way, in part. I mean, you try to think of, I think one of the deeper goals of our work is peace, is unity, is fellowship, is trying to make a better world, and it would be interesting to think that an Ishnati is part of that, a quinceañera is part of that, but I think that is some fundamental piece of the fabric that's fraying.
I have a question. My name is Anna. When I think of the title, The Hidden World of Girls, one of the things that pops into my mind is sexuality. I think as a culture, we still have so much trouble acknowledging that young adolescent girls are sexual creatures and have sexual desires. We see that for boys, for sure, and we think girls are at risk, but we have a lot of trouble acknowledging or helping encourage girls to learn in that area. And I just wondered if that was a theme that came out in this work, of sexual identity, exploration around that.
Yeah, it's the elephant in the living room. It's the undertow. It was interesting. When we started the series, we went, how are we going to do this series about girls and the women they become when even NPR has such a hard time letting any of these words on the air? I mean, in part, the first story that aired in the series was the chicken pill story, and the edit for that story as words. I was listening to it today going, I'm amazed the words that even made it through, and I kept thinking, how do we talk about girls without talking about bodies? And it's huge, and finding a way to do that, and developing the language and developing beautiful language is part of the goal of this series. It's not been an easy part of it. Talking about birth control was part of it too. Birth control equals sex. When we went through our edits with NPR, the sex part of the birth control story kept getting removed by our editor. It was like, wait a minute, these things are linked here. So yeah, it's a big issue.
And the beautiful story about the lesbians in Pakistan and how they kind of find, their identity, and it's less about taboo and more about there's a real threat to their lives, in a lot of these situations. That was an amazing story. Do you want to talk about that a little bit?
We could hear a little bit of it.
Oh, we can hear?
Yeah,
I didn't know if you had that
Hawk,
one.
do you want to play? If you go to, there you go, down to the very end there. How are we doing for time? That's chicken pills. They can't be stopped, those Jamaicans.
We've been bringing you our series, The Hidden World of Girls, produced with the Kitchen Sisters, Davia Nelson and Nikki Silva. Today we go to Pakistan, to the city of Lahore. We'll meet a young woman who shares her story about coming to terms with her sexual orientation in that Islamic state. Reporter Habiba Noshin met several times over the course of 5 years with a woman we'll call Fatima. This woman and others in our story have asked us to conceal their identities to protect them against reprisals in a country hostile towards gays and lesbians.
I met Fatima alone for the first time at a cafe in Pakistan in the city of Lahore 5 years ago. Fatima was 23 at the time and studying law. She wore blue jeans and a loose shirt and sported short, boyish hair. That was the first sign she wasn't a typical Pakistani girl. As we sat sipping cappuccinos, she leaned in to share a secret she had revealed to only a few other people before. I'm a lesbian, she says hesitantly.
I think I knew since a very early age. It felt quite isolating, I feel. Like I didn't see people or kids around me feel the same way.
in an Islamic country like Pakistan, homosexuality is banned under Section 377 of the Pakistani Penal Code. Violators can be punished with imprisonment for life in addition to a fine. However, Fatima says it's not the law that gays and lesbians here fear, it's families and neighbors. She suspects that many gays and lesbians are murdered by their own family or clans in honor killings. Fatma grew up in a house with sisters who were always obsessing over boys, a reality that Fatma says she could never relate to.
From the time that I've known this about myself, every day that I've felt that I wish I was just like everybody else.
But her attraction to women became undeniable when she found herself in love with her best friend in high school. She was 18 and finally worked up the nerve to tell her.
What was really surprising, I really didn't expect her to like me back. I really didn't. It was one of the best surprises of my life. I just thought I'm going to tell her and she's just going to be like, "Are you crazy? What's wrong with you?" And the fact that she didn't say that just blew my mind.
The two dated for years, but always in secret. They would hold hands walking down the street, as many women do in Pakistan. Women holding hands is simply regarded as sisterly love. And that idea of sisterly love allows female lovers to stay under the radar, even more so than in the West, until they reach the age of marriage. That's when a lesbian relationship comes in direct conflict with the very fabric of Pakistani society. After years of a secret romance, Fatma's girlfriend suddenly left her, saying there was no future for a lesbian relationship in Pakistan. She married a man. Fatma says she can understand why her girlfriend made that decision.
I think from the time that you're born, you're socialized into believing that homosexuality is unnatural. It is a disease, and it is completely prohibited.
That sense of abnormality, Fatma says, haunts her.
My insides are at war with each other. There are days I wake up and think I should just embrace myself. And there are days I wake up and think I should kill myself.
Leaving the country, Fatma says, is not an option. She thinks it's her calling to be a human rights lawyer in Pakistan. A few days after our first meeting, we meet again in her car.
It's amazing also thinking about sex, but also how rarely we hear the word love on the radio. How few real love stories there are. And listening to that story, it just reminds me that I like this series because it gave us a place to talk about love as well.
Well, we're coming to about 4 o'clock, and so I would like to thank a lot of people before we kind of finish up, and thank you all for coming here this afternoon. Chris Newek and Hillary Hazel are behind the bar, so thank you so much for bartending for us today. Seth Price is our sound engineer. Thank you, Seth. We have Andreas, Aaron, and Sarah behind the cameras for the storyboard team. And incidentally, you will find this recording along with the video when it's up on the storyboard section of our website at kut.org. And thank you, Kayla, for coming around with the microphone. And thanks to Hawk and Matt Munoz and Amy Chambliss from KUT for making this happen today. And a very big thank you to Davia Nelson and Jesslyn Keller and Jendai Bonds for being with us to discuss the hidden world of girls. And Jendai has one more song to take us out, and thank you all so much for coming. It's been a pleasure.
This is my newest song. It's an instrumental, and I hope you guys enjoy it. Thank you.
We have a very special show this evening as well, so if you'd like to come back to the Cactus, Robin Hitchcock will be playing along with Joe Boyd. Along with Joe Boyd, and that show starts at 7 o'clock, is that right? Or is it earlier? 7 o'clock. Thank you so much. Enjoy your afternoon.
I've fallen down and I can't get back up. And they don't seem to notice, and if they do, then they don't care. I've fallen down